oh, wouldn't it be nice to share this with somebody, to share that with
I would
somebody?
love that.
You know, that's what I meant.
Except my feeling is, I live in my house, and I like my space, and I like to go to sleep when I want to go to sleep, and I like to turn on the television or read when I want to read. So if I ever got married again, he would have to live next door.
Carol Burnett is a name that almost everyone in America knows, and for good reason. For over a decade, she made the world laugh with her groundbreaking television show. But behind that laughter was a story filled with pain and struggle. And in order to truly understand why one particular sketch from 1977 left her so shaken that she never watched it again, we must start from her troubled childhood in Texas. Carol Burnett was born on April 26, 1933 in San Antonio, Texas. Her early life was far from easy or glamorous. Her father, Joseph Burnett, worked as a movie theater manager but was unable to keep a steady job due to his addiction to alcohol. Her mother, Ina Louise, also struggled with alcoholism. Both parents would eventually die due to alcohol-related illnesses. By the time Carol was old enough to remember anything, she already knew what it felt like to be abandoned. The two people who were supposed to love her the most were unable to care for her because of their own struggles with addiction. When Carol was still a young child, her parents separated, and she was sent to live with her maternal grandmother, Mabel White. In 1940, when Carol was only 7 years old, she and her grandmother left Texas and moved to Hollywood, California. But this was not the glamorous Hollywood of movie stars and red carpets. They lived in a tiny, rundown boarding house in a rough neighborhood. The two of them survived on just $20 a week, which was barely enough for food, let alone anything extra. Despite the poverty and chaos, Carol found something precious in her new life: safety and love from her grandmother. In this bleak environment, Carol learned early that humor could be a shield against pain. Laughter became her way to survive the loneliness and uncertainty that filled her days. She even created an imaginary twin sister named Karen, who was everything Carol wished she could be: confident, beautiful, and happy. She would change clothes and hairstyles to pretend to be Karen, entertaining the other tenants in the boarding house. This early play acting was not just a way to escape reality, it was the beginning of her journey as a performer. Every Saturday, Carol and her grandmother would save up 25 cents, more than a tenth of their weekly income, to go to the movies. The dark theater became their sanctuary. For a few hours, Carol could forget about the hunger and the cracked walls of the boarding house. On the screen, life was beautiful, people were happy, and everything ended well. But when the lights came back on, reality returned. Life was so hard that they could not even afford basic necessities like toilet paper. Carol and her grandmother would quietly take some from the theater bathroom. Even at 7 years old, Carol understood what it meant to go without, and she learned to do whatever was necessary to survive. One day, while watching a Tarzan movie, Carol heard Johnny Weissmuller's famous Tarzan yell. She was so fascinated by it that she began practicing it at home, over and over, until she could mimic it perfectly. She did not know it at the time, but this silly childhood game was helping her develop the vocal control that would later become a trademark of her comedy. By the time Carol finished high school, she had a new dream: to become a journalist. Her mother had always wanted to be a writer, and Carol felt she should try to achieve what her mother could not. She set her sights on attending UCLA, but when it came time to enroll, she realized she did not have the $50 needed for tuition. This was a huge amount for her family, equal to about $600 today. It seemed like her dream was over before it even began. But then something miraculous happened. A stranger whose identity Carol never learned gave her the money she needed to enroll. There were no strings attached. It was simply a gift that changed her life. At UCLA, Carol planned to study journalism, but an elective class in theater changed everything. On stage, she discovered a new side of herself. She was not shy or invisible anymore. She could sing, act, and make people laugh. Suddenly, journalism seemed too small for her dreams. She switched her major to theater, Her decision paid off quickly. At the end of her freshman year, Carol was named the most promising newcomer in UCLA's theater program. This recognition gave her confidence and opened doors to better roles and mentors. She was no longer just another hopeful actress. She had something special. In 1954, when Carol was a junior in college, she was working as an usherette in San Diego for 65 cents an hour. One night, while she was taking some food home for her grandmother, a wealthy man approached her. He was not from show business, but he was impressed by Carol's ambition. Carol told him she wanted to go to New York to make it on Broadway, but she could not even afford UCLA's tuition. The man offered her and her boyfriend, Don Soroyan, $1,000 each to pursue their dreams, with only one condition. They had to keep his name a secret and help others if they ever made it. His wife later said he had helped many people in this way. With $2,000 in cash, Carol and Don left UCLA and moved to New York in 1954. Carol had never been farther than Texas before and did not know anyone in New York. Their money ran out quickly, and Carol was so discouraged that she called her family in tears, ready to give up. But then she heard on the radio that a hurricane named Carol was moving up the coast. She took this as a sign to stay and keep fighting. Carol found a place at the rehearsal club, a boarding house for young women trying to make it in show business. She shared a room with 4 other actresses and a cat. There was only one bathroom, but to Carol, it was heaven compared to what she had known. She worked as a hat check girl at night and auditioned for roles during the day. In March 1955, Carol and the other girls put on a show called The Rehearsal Club Review and invited agents and producers. Her big break came when she sang a silly love song about John Foster Dulles, the U.S. Secretary of State. The song was so over the top and funny that it became her signature. Audiences loved her, and she was soon invited to appear on The Jack Parr Show and then The Ed Sullivan Show in January 1957. By the end of her set, people were laughing so hard they were crying. In August of that same year, she performed the Dulles song again, along with a parody of Puppy Love. These performances made her famous in the New York comedy scene for the next 5 years. In 1955, she landed a small part on The Paul Winchell Show, which led to other TV opportunities. But the real turning point came in 1959, when Carol was cast in the off-Broadway musical Once Upon a Mattress. She played Princess Winifred, a loud and clumsy character who was nothing like the typical fairy tale princess. The show was a huge hit, running for 470 performances and earning Carol her first Tony Award nomination. When she left the cast in June 1960, the show closed within a week, proving just how vital she was to its success. Carol's rise continued when she joined the Gary Moore Show in 1959. She became a regular and won her first Emmy Award in 1962 for her role as a cleaning lady. The show taught her how to interact with a live audience, a skill that would become central to her later work. She also met other rising stars like Don Knotts and Jonathan Winters on the show. In 1962, Carol was given the chance to star in a television special with Julie Andrews. CBS executives were skeptical, but after a chance encounter where they saw Carol's sense of humor and charm, they approved the show. Julie and Carol at Carnegie Hall was a huge success, winning 3 major awards and reaching number 85 on the music charts. But nothing compared to what came next. On September 11, 1967, The Carol Burnett Show premiered on CBS. For 11 straight seasons from 1967 to 1978, the show pulled in 30 million viewers every week. That is a number very few shows in history have ever reached. The show was more than just entertainment. It was an event. Time magazine named it one of the 100 best TV shows of all time, and Variety ranked it 23rd. The Carol Burnett Show broke new ground in television. Carol was the first woman to host a variety show in prime time. She played dozens of characters, from the lovable Eunice to the hilarious Mrs. Wiggins. The show featured comedy sketches, musical numbers, and guest stars from all over Hollywood. It won 25 Emmy Awards and 8 Golden Globes. The show's influence can be seen in later programs like Saturday Night Live and The Tracy Ullman Show. The show was a massive hit with viewers. No matter what day or time it aired, people tuned in to watch. Sometimes it was on at 10 p.m. on Mondays. Other times it was on late Saturday nights. But the ratings stayed strong. That kind of consistency is extremely rare in television. Over its 11-year run, The Carol Burnett Show won an incredible 25 Primetime Emmy Awards. That is more than most shows win in a lifetime. The awards covered many categories. Harvey Korman, one of the show's stars, won 4 Emmys for his supporting performances in 1969, 1971, 1972, and 1974. Tim Conway, another fan favorite, also won 4 Emmys, 3 for acting and 1 for writing. Carol Burnett herself won 2 Golden Globes for Best Actress in a Comedy or Musical in 1977 and 1978. The show also won the People's Choice Award for Favorite Variety Show 3 years in a row, 1975, 1977, and 1978. These numbers show just how much the show meant to both critics and fans. Most variety shows that came after never reached the same level of popularity or respect. The Carol Burnett Show was famous for its live comedy skits performed in front of a studio audience. This was a new style at the time, and it inspired later shows like Saturday Night Live. The cast included talented comedians like Harvey Korman, Tim Conway, and Vicki Lawrence. Tim Conway in particular was known for never doing the same thing twice. He often saved his best jokes and improvisations for the live taping, so even his fellow actors were surprised and sometimes cracked up on stage. One of the most famous moments happened during a sketch called The Family, when Conway told a long, silly story about a circus elephant. The story was so funny and unexpected that even the other actors couldn't keep a straight face. These unscripted moments made the show feel real and special. But not everything was always funny. In 1977, the show aired a sketch called The Gong Show that was very different. Carol played a woman named Eunice who dreamed of being famous. Instead of comedy, the sketch showed real pain and heartbreak when Eunice was laughed at and rejected. The scene was so powerful that everyone on set was almost crying, and viewers at home were stunned. Critics praised it, and it led to a TV movie and a spin-off sitcom called Mama's Family. Carol Burnett's success was not just about comedy, she broke serious ground for women in television. In the 1960s and 1970s, there were very few women in charge of TV shows. Carol was not only the star, but also had creative control over her show. She chose the cast, helped write sketches, and made important decisions. This was almost unheard of at the time. Because of her, many other women were able to follow in her footsteps and have their own shows. While Carol Burnett was making millions of people laugh, her personal life was often full of pain and struggle. She married 3 times. Her first husband, Don Soroyan, was a college sweetheart. They married in 1955, but their marriage broke down after the death of Don's daughter from a previous relationship. They divorced in 1962. Her second husband, Joe Hamilton, was a TV producer who worked on her show. They married in 1963 and had 3 daughters, Carrie, Jody, and Erin. Their home was always busy, with Joe's 8 children from a previous marriage and their own 3. But even as their careers were going well, their family life was difficult. In 1976, Carol was hurt by a false story in the National Enquirer that claimed that she was drunk in a restaurant. She sued the tabloid for $1.6 million, and after 5 years, settled for about $200,000. The lawsuit was not about money, but about clearing her name. She wanted to show that celebrities deserve respect and privacy, and her case changed how tabloids reported on stars. Her biggest battle, though, was at home. In the late 1970s, her daughter Carrie started using drugs at age 13. For years, Carol sent her to rehab after rehab, but nothing seemed to help. Carrie finally got sober at 17, but it was a long and painful process. Carol once said that as a parent, you have to love them enough to let them hate you. For over a year, they did not speak, but eventually they became closer than ever. Carol's family struggles did not end with Carrie. Now, before you leave, don't forget to give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and also ring that notification bell while you're down there.